test. Yes, good. The sun is slowly fading in the western sky. Sometimes it takes forever for the day to end. Sometimes it takes a lifetime. Sometimes I think I'll never see the sun again. In the east, a shaded moon is hanging lazily. I do believe I saw the old man smile. I do believe I did. I do believe he's been hanging all the while. I think it's kind of interesting the way things get to be, the way that people work with their machines. Serenity's a long time coming to me. In fact, I don't believe I know what it means. There's a heavy smog between me and the mountains. It's enough to make a grown man sit and cry. It's enough to make you wonder. It's enough to make the world roll up and die. I think it's kind of interesting the way things get to be, the way that people work with their machines. Serenity's a long time coming to me. Don't believe I know what it means anymore. When the sun is slowly fading in the western sky, sometimes it takes forever for the day to end. Sometimes it takes a lifetime. Sometimes I think I'll never see the sun again. The sun again. The sun again.
Live Oak. Please rise in body or spirit for our gathering hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Good morning and welcome, beloved community. I'm Reverend Joanna. In this sacred space, we gather as one, celebrating the tapestry of our diversity, honoring the boundless love that unites us all. Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Church is unambiguously, unapologetically progressive, and our doors swing wide to embrace all who seek a welcoming place where we celebrate the LGBTQIA+ community, where we know that every identity is a divine expression of humanity, where we commit to the work of dismantling systemic racism and other oppressions, striving for a world where equity, compassion, and justice are the cornerstones of our shared existence. May our worship today be a source of inspiration, a wellspring of courage, and a call to action. Welcome, dear friends, to this place of love, acceptance, and progress.
My name is Mark Anderson, and I want to give a special welcome to any visitors we may have today, either in person or online. If you haven't already, I encourage you to stop by our visitors table in the narthex after the service to sign up for our weekly email newsletter, and so we can meet you and answer any questions you may have. And next Sunday, April the 14th, you have the opportunity to learn even more about Live Oak at our Exploring Membership class, which will be hosted by Reverend Joanna and the membership team, and is held in the library after Sunday's service. Unitarian Universalism is a non-creedal faith. There are no doctrines you have to agree with in order to belong. Instead, we are held together by covenant, our promises to each other in this church and within our religious tradition. Please join me in these words from our historic faith. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We unite with UU churches around the world by lighting our flaming chalice, the symbol of our religion. Today, Ren Goss will be lighting our chalice. Here and at home, we light it today with these words. May we light this chalice this morning to remind us of the power and beauty of balance and contrast. It is darkness that can make the flame of a single candle so powerful, and light that deepens those shadows in turn. A chalice flame is the meeting point, the union of the refuge, safety, and incredible beauty of darkness, and the warmth, the assurance, and the joy of light. May this act of lighting our chalice this morning remind us that we are stronger together in all the complexities and the disagreements of relationship, because we are different and because we are one.
So you may notice that we're missing a vital person of our band. We miss Bill. We would love for you to please sing along with us on the familiar parts if you know the song.
Please. Oh, I'm being followed by a moon shadow.
Moon shadow, moon shadow.
Leaping and hopping on a moon shadow. Moon shadow, moon shadow. And if I ever lose my hands, lose my plow, lose my hands. Oh, if I ever lose my hands, oh, if I won't have to work no more. And if I ever lose my eyes, all my colors all run dry. If I ever lose my eyes, oh, if I won't have to cry no more. I'm being followed by a moon shadow, moon shadow. leaping and hopping on a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow.
If I ever lose my legs, I won't moan and I won't beg. Yes, if I ever lose my legs, oh, if I won't have to walk no more. And if I ever lose my mouth, all my teeth, north and south. Yes, if I ever lose my mouth, oh, if I won't have to talk.
Did it take long to find me? I asked the faithful light. And did it take long to find me? And are you gonna stay the night? Oh,
I'm being followed by a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow.
Leaping and hopping on a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow.
Moon shadow, moon shadow.
Moon shadow, moon shadow.
Moon shadow, moon shadow.
Our reading today is an excerpt from Total Eclipse by Annie Dillard. It began with no ado. It was odd that such a well-advertised public event should have no starting gun, no overture, no introductory speaker. I should have known right then that I was out of my depth. Without pause or preamble, silent as orbits, a piece of the sun went away. A piece of the sun was missing. In its place, we saw empty sky. What you see in an eclipse is entirely different from what you know. It is especially different for those whose grasp of astronomy is so frail that, given a flashlight, a grapefruit, 2 oranges, and 15 years, we still could not figure out which way to set the clocks for daylight savings time. Usually, it is a bit of a trick to keep your knowledge from blinding you, but during an eclipse, it is easy. What you see is much more convincing than any wild-eyed theory that you may know. You may read that the moon has something to do with eclipses. I have never seen the moon yet. You do not see the moon. So near the sun, it is as completely invisible as the stars are by day. What you see before your eyes is the sun going through phases. It gets narrower and narrower, as the waning moon does, and like the ordinary moon, it travels alone in the simple sky. Now the sky to the west deepened to indigo, a color never seen. A dark sky usually loses color. This was a saturated, deep indigo up in the air. Stuck up into that unworldly sky was the cone of Mount Adams, and the alpenglow was upon it. The alpenglow is that red light of sunset that holds out on snowy mountaintops long after the valleys and tablelands are dimmed. Look at Mount Adams, I said, and that was the last sane moment I remember. I turned back to the sun. It was going. The sun was going, and the world was wrong. The grasses were wrong. They were platinum. Their every detail of stem, head, and blade shone lightless and artificially distinct as an art photographer's platinum print. This color has never been seen on the earth. The hues were metallic. Their finish was matte. The hillside was a 19th century tinted photograph from which the tints had faded. The sky was navy blue. My hands were silver. All the distant hills' grasses were fine-spun metal that the wind laid down. I was watching a faded color print of a movie filmed in the Middle Ages. I was standing in it by some mistake. I was standing in a movie of hillside grasses filmed in the Middle Ages. I missed my own century, the people I knew, the real light of day. From all the hills came screams. A piece of sky beside the crescent sun was detaching. It was a loosened circle of evening sky, suddenly lit from the back. It was an abrupt black body out of nowhere. It was a flat disk. It was almost over the sun. That is when there were screams. At once, this disk of sky slid over the sun like a lid. Abruptly, it was dark night, and on the land and in the sky. In the night sky was a tiny ring of light. The hole where the sun belongs is very small. A thin ring of light marked its place. There was no sound. The eyes dried, the arteries drained, the lungs hushed. There was no world. We were the world's dead people, rotating and orbiting around and around, embedded in the planet's crust while the earth rolled down. Our minds were light years distant, forgetful of almost everything. Only an extraordinary act of will could recall to us our former living selves and our context in matter and time. We had, it seems, loved the planet and loved our lives, but could no longer remember the way of them. We got the light wrong. In the sky was something that should not be there. In the black sky was a ring of light. It was a thin ring, an old, thin silver wedding band, an old worn ring. It was an old wedding band in the sky, or a morsel of bone. There were stars. It was all over. Thus ends our reading.
For the past 31 years, Live Oak has been a beacon of acceptance, love, and inclusivity in an area where our values often challenge the status quo. In a world where divisiveness and intolerance seem to grow stronger, we firmly believe in the transformative power of our faith and the positive impact that we are having in our area. We invite you to make a financial contribution to help sustain this church's vital work, knowing that every gift, large and small, is appreciated and carefully used in service to our mission. And if you would like to donate electronically, there's a card with a QR code in the seat back pockets. Every week we share what is given with an organization or a particular fund whose works reflect our own UU values. This month we are giving to a scholarship fund for attending events and camps at UBAR-U, the Unitarian Universalist Retreat. And now Chris will tell us more.
Reverend Joanna already told you. So this month, the Share the Plate is, we're going to be funding a scholarship fund for the youth and kids and families of our congregation to go to UBAR-U this summer for camps. UBAR-U and the summer camps that they offer give us a chance, especially for our kids, to be together in community with UUs from all over the state and the region. It is an uplifting, spiritually confirming experience for our kids. We have someone going, yes, yes. You should see them and ask them about that. So we encourage you, we want to make sure that if a family or a child or a youth would like to go, that we are able to help them. We want no one to be turned away. So please give generously and let us build this beloved community by going to camp.
Let this time of offering be a reflection of our shared commitment to making a positive impact on the world, and a reminder that our Unitarian Universalist values guide us not only in our beliefs, but in our actions. Eclipse is making things wild, y'all. Thank you for your presence and your contributions to our ongoing journey of building the beloved community here and in our wider parish.
want to take just a few beautiful moments to tell you a story called A Few Beautiful Minutes. It is written by Kate Allen Fox. Under a blue, broad sky, from coast to coast, we gather for a rare illusion, a total eclipse of the sun. And when the sun vanishes into thin air for a few beautiful moments, in the endless expanse of space, the universe prepares for a show, one the sun and the moon have given us since the dawn of time. They find their places as the performance begins. The sun, forever the star, beams vast and vibrant, her stage unchanged. But the moon has already begun gliding, sliding, slipping into the spotlight to steal the sun's glory for a few beautiful minutes. Little by little, she hides the sun. Our eyes alone can't see the change. The sun, still too bright, can burn our eyes for life. We look through our sun viewers and see the glowing giant as it seems to shrink. Her circle chipped into a crescent in the shadows of trees, slivers of light mirrored the sun's shifting silhouette. That's the shadow of the crescent of the solstice moon, of the sun on the ground. Look at that. Wow. In the moon moves further and farther in front of the sun, a small sphere, striving to overshadow a giant for a few beautiful minutes. Moment by moment, for an hour or more, the stage transforms. The sun grows slimmer, the sky dimmer, as a midday twilight takes shape. The world grows more than light. An eerie orange hue hugs the horizon. Above us, the sky becomes as dark as the deep sea, stars shining brighter than ever, twinkling into the darkness. The birds will roost for the night as the crickets and the bats awake. The temperature plummets as the chill of night nips at our ears in the cold, in the dark. In anticipation, we wait for a few beautiful minutes. The last rays of light fade away. The moment arrives. The corona, the sun's atmosphere or crown, now shimmers around the moon, the unlikely queen of the solar system. The corona's lightning, like tentacles, grasp at space. Their glow dances in our eyes, all of us aware of our own tininess, all captivated, all connected for those tiny, precious minutes. In the crowd is one tiny, precious you, arms spread wide in the sweet, cool grass under a velvet panorama. You come face to face with the splendor of the universe, reclaiming her daytime throne as light creeps back to this earth. We look around at one another. Glitches. We look around at one another. Once strangers, now we are friends. People who together glimpsed the extraordinary, Speechless, we smile, we hug, we high-five each other, and we remember what we saw for a few beautiful minutes. You are a tiny, precious part of an infinitely incredible universe. I wonder if you know how unique and wonderful each of you is. And with this, our story is told.
Please rise as you are willing and able for hymn number 343, A Fire, Mist, and a Planet, verses 1, 2, and 3.
Humans are meaning-making machines. We see pictures in the clouds. We try to draw lessons from our life experiences. And most of all, most human of all, we look for patterns. And from those patterns, we draw conclusions. Now, some of the time when we are looking at those patterns and drawing those conclusions, we do it very well. And that's where we get so much of the knowledge of how our universe works. And sometimes we look at patterns and we do it very not well. Correlation is not causation. Although sometimes correlation can be what leads us to determining cause and effect. So tomorrow, whether the clouds are here or not, we will be in the path of totality for the solar eclipse. What is the meaning that you will be drawing from this? It seems like out of all of the different celestial events, an eclipse is the one that has most stirred us up as humans from the very beginning of pre-civilization. There was just something about that. Now, I will tell you, when you look back at the ancient people and the meaning that they drew from eclipses, it usually was not a positive thing. It was usually pretty negative. They tended to see it as a bad omen. And that's not surprising, right? When you think about it. The ancient people, they knew that the sun was what provided light and warmth. They had an inkling that life was somehow connected to this. And then in the middle of the day, it just disappeared. I mean, think of that. That had to be completely terrifying. A feeling of impending apocalypse. So I think it's entirely natural that so many civilizations did have sort of a negative interpretation of what was happening. Now, because we are humans, humans look for patterns. And sometimes those patterns lead us to scientific discovery, and sometimes they lead us to some not very great places. The ancient Assyrians, we can tell from some of the writings that we have been able to find, they had a tradition called the substitute king. So this is around like 650 BCE. And people had for a long time been looking at the stars and charting things and finding things that happened at the same time as these repeating eclipses. And so the Assyrians had determined that an eclipse was a harbinger of a king dying. Now for the kingdom, this was something pretty terrible. It made the whole kingdom more vulnerable to have that sort of instability. The kings also were not a fan of this. And so this tradition was created where they voluntold someone to be the substitute king. And this person would have a period of time while the real king went into hiding. The substitute king would get to literally live the life of a king, right? All of the best feasts and wine and finery, maybe even a young queen to go along with them. And then the eclipse would happen, and the substitute king would be eliminated. And then the real king could come out of hiding and regain his throne. And this tradition seems to be one of the oldest and like longest running ones. It perhaps goes back all the way to the Babylonian Empire based on some of the things that archaeologists have found. So people created meaning. They looked for patterns. They came to conclusions, not always good ones. And because they were so afraid of the unknown, they tried to put in rituals that gave them some sort of a feeling of control. Now, on the other side of the world, in the Mayan Empire, the Mayans, we currently credit as being some of the first best astronomers, and they kept records of all that they were noting with the heavens. And for them too, an eclipse was a bad omen. They believed in a sun god, and their interpretation of the eclipse, because the sun god, they credited not only with controlling light and warmth, but time, day and night, and even the 4 directions. And so this was to them very frightening. They took the eclipse as a sign that the sun god was dying. And so they tried to step in and do something about that and Kings at that time were considered to be in some sort of a relationship to God, if not actually gods themselves. They were like closer to God. And so the kings, there would be bloodletting, not sacrificing them, but like dropping their blood on the ground, and that was going to help save the sun god. So that was another interpretation of what was happening. Now, what's really interesting when you look into this, and right now is a great time because, of course, everyone is writing articles. You can find, you do have to do a little bit of like critical thinking about whether this is coming from an appropriate source or not. But one of the really interesting things in the mythologies and the stories that they were creating about eclipses is that there is a commonality that you see around the globe, and it was looking up at these eclipses and creating a story of the sun being eaten. Ancient Pac-Man, if you were. And what's so interesting is you see these with cultures that never interacted. Two of the most obvious ones, one being the ancient Chinese, who created a story of a dragon eating the sun. You also see stories of wolves eating the sun. And then the Cherokee, their story was that there was a giant frog that was eating the sun. And what's interesting is all of these, or not all, most of these, definitely the Chinese and the Cherokee, their way of dealing with this, because again, uncertainty and a feeling of not being able to control something, it's just what is in our heads, is so difficult for humans to deal with, that they had to somehow feel that they could be a part of this and that they could have an effect on it. And so the Chinese and the Cherokee would go out and make loud noises and beat on drums, beat on pans, anything to scare away the dragon or the frog or whatever. Not all of the meaning that was drawn from eclipses were negative. Over in Western Africa, you had this tribe, the Batamariba. And for them, they looked at the sun and the moon, and they saw them as being these forces that were fighting. And so the meaning that they drew from it is that they should do the opposite. That an eclipse should be the time when people would make amends and people would forgive each other and they would come back into relationship. They would try to end wars and fights. And wouldn't it be great if that was the meaning on earth that we could draw from it today? People are still honoring these ancient stories and still drawing meaning beyond the science of what the eclipse means. So one example is the Navajo Nation, the Dene people. For them, this is seen as a sacred time, a sort of rebirth, and they do not partake, they do not go out and look at the eclipse. They stay in their homes. This is from 2017, and this was an actual memo from the Navajo Nation. On that year, they had an administrative leave, and they said, in accordance with Dene teachings, one must not look at the eclipse, must respect the eclipse by maintaining stillness in their homes and not partake of food and water during the period of the eclipse. At the conclusion of the eclipse, prayer is made using corn pollen in order to seek harmony among our families, relatives, and Dene. We have been advised by our Dene medicine men to observe the natural occurrence in the manner guided by Dene fundamental laws. It is important to respect the teachings of our elders during the eclipse. So that's one way of drawing meaning. So much so, in fact, that there are like press releases that are going out and saying, look at kind of a trigger warning, right, of saying don't post pictures even of the eclipse that one of the Dene people may see without kind of giving a warning ahead of time. Because for them, again, this is a sacred time to look at the eclipse or even a picture of the eclipse. There is the feeling not only that that is not good for your eyes, good advice to follow, by the way, but also that will take away from your own sense of peace and centeredness. Now, that is one of the native peoples. It is not all. The Cherokee, who I mentioned before, have a very different way of celebrating the eclipse. Tomorrow in Tahlequah, the Cherokee Nation will be out there, and they will have pans and they will have noisemakers. An elder will tell the story, this metaphor of the giant frog eating the sun. And so there are all these different ways to experience the eclipse and to draw meaning from it, and because we are a very reason-centered faith, you can have both. These people today, it is not that they don't know the science of what is happening. They can appreciate with awe and wonder the science and still partake of their ancient traditions as a way of feeling bonded to each other and bonded to their ancestors of thousands of years ago. So what is the meaning that you are going to be drawing from this eclipse tomorrow? Like I said, this pattern that we have of looking for patterns and drawing conclusions, it seems to be something so very human in us. And it's not something to be completely discounted, right? Ancient people observed other humans eating a particular colored mushroom. And they observed that those same people got sick and died. And they drew the conclusion, perhaps we should not eat these mushrooms. And because of that evolutionary instinct, we are here today. But again, that same instinct is what led people to draw conclusions involving human sacrifice and other harmful things. And if you have been online at all during the past week, you know that people are still doing it. Has anyone seen any of these things? All kinds of conspiracies. People are coming up with all kinds of conspiracies and trying to draw patterns. There's one about how this eclipse came this way and this eclipse came this way and this makes a cross and this is going to happen. And it is good to be able to appreciate mythology. It is also good to be able to differentiate between mythology and science. And it is good to celebrate the science too. Our scientists, and I know we have some in the congregation, our scientists, amateur and professional, are so excited about this because with every eclipse, there is new knowledge to be gained. There are new experiments. I was reading yesterday about a group that's going to be out in the hill country, we wish them luck, who are going to be looking at these things called shadow bands, because this is something that appears with an eclipse. There's going to be scientists who are measuring plasma and solar flares. There are certain things that you can only see with the corona when the eclipse happens. You can be a part of it too. If you go to NASA's website, they have a place where if you take a video of the eclipse, you can upload it. They're going to be gathering these from all the people who are in the path of the eclipse and coming up with new knowledge. And there are people who will also be watching the animals. You like animals? Anyone here like animals? the non-human animals, to be specific. It had been thought until very recently that animals didn't really react, that they were above such things, right? They just went about their lives. And then the last few eclipses, they had people who began studying them and really observing what was happening, and they got a lot of surprises. Because it turns out that a lot of those animals, especially the ones in zoos, the ones in captivity where they could really watch them, they did some interesting things. Giraffes began like kind of maniacally running around their enclosure. You do hear stories a lot about like birds and insects during the eclipse growing quieter. In captivity, flamingos all huddled together, putting the younger flamingos sort of inside them to protect them. And one of the most interesting ones, anyone here know what a Galapagos tortoise is? Yes, they're really big, right? They're really, really big, and they're really, really lethargic. And guess what happened? They started breeding during the eclipse. You can just never tell what meaning any animal, including humans, is going to be drawing from this. Here's the thing. We are meaning-making machines. We've talked about a little quirk of human psychology in this church before, and that is the fact that the most uncomfortable thing for us is to accept how out of control life is. We are far more helpless than we want to admit. Things happen for no real rhyme or reason, and it's so difficult to hold that we would feel almost anything else. If you are going through grief, we talk about this in our grief group. If you are going through grief, you would rather feel guilt than feel helpless. And so you can imagine for ancient people, what is the thing that you have the least control over? What is happening up in the sky? And so to try to deal with that, they came up with rituals and stories and traditions. And so I invite you, as you are figuring out what the eclipse means in your life, to also consider this idea that yes, life is random, and what can we each do not to fight that, not to stir up things, not to try and do things that make us feel more in control, like coming up with superstitions, but instead to sit with that discomfort and accept it as a fact of life, just as we look with awe and wonder at the mysteries that surround us. I invite you now to enter in with me into a period of meditation. A friend of mine, a colleague, created a video. So this is going to be kind of a meditation in video and sound.
Here, in the path of totality, before. I want to spend the upcoming solar eclipse dancing between science and poetry. I want to careen between explanation and awe. I want to cha-cha-cha around and among the logisticians and the retailers and the high-strung bureaucrats, and then sashay away. I want to find myself spiraling among exponential excitement and cellular fear of primal abandonment and humbling recognition of my place in the vast cosmos, only to find myself irrevocably claimed as kin by other earth-bound creatures. I want to be just this side of mad, barely able to contain the impulse to tear off my special order, specialized glasses, as if I just might give my whole self over a sacrifice to the sun god who has abandoned us. And only my offering can do the needful. In the midday darkness, I want to lose all sense of proportion. For the briefest of moment, yet long enough for me to notice, I want to forget that the sun is returning and feel the terror that my barely sapient ancestors felt, the fright that caused Emperor Louis of Bavaria, son of Charlemagne, in 840 of the Common Era, to die upon witnessing the same thing. Not dying myself, not dying, not me, not now, not yet. I want to howl at the black disk of a moon and hear my fellow humans letting loose similarly our cries, a paean to visceral cosmology. I want to know kinship beyond blood, beyond species, beyond planet. I want to long for the return of celestial light, knowing such yearning as core to my existence, leaving its stellar and lunar and solar mark on my psyche for the rest of my mortal days. I want to discover and delve into my own enormity, the one that coalesces and congeals and cogitates with our collective, retrospective, future fecund enormity. I want to weep and wail without hesitation, distinguished from those with lives that are like a personal scant desert, not able to produce holy tears to water the sacred ground beneath. I want to, for the briefest of moments, the longest of times, to stop struggling the struggle and come to know my place here, humble, not humiliated, little, not belittled, alive, alive, alive.
And will you please join me in singing Meditation on Breathing? When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. This community is a chosen village where our lives are interconnected. Part of the tapestry of this communal journey is sharing the significant milestones, joys, and sorrows in our lives, and witnessing the diversity that we hold. One of us may be celebrating a life event, while another is mourning a grief. And there's a beauty in that mosaic as we are reminded that these moments of life are transient and ever-changing. Today, Rosie shares, can't wait for the final game of March Madness, go Purdue. Gabrielle shares, finally found full-time work as activities coordinator. Roy shares, we are joyful in gratitude for the leading of the Spirit to join you all today. Yes. Curtis shares a few things. Lively Middle School Varsity Treble Choir got an excellent rating at UIL, which is amazing for a first year together. Also, he gets to sing in 3 different choirs this week, and the Live Oak Chorus was amazing on Easter Sunday. So thankful for all the joy a choir brings. Dan Scott shares that Egypt was amazing, especially the people asked to see some of his 800 pictures and videos. And Mark Anderson shares that I am happy my sister is here visiting. I also have some very sad news for those who have not heard. Our longtime members, Sylvia Davis and Hella Hallebeck were in a bad car wreck this week. They are both in ICU. I saw both of them yesterday. Now is not a time to be visiting, but what would be lovely, they both have their families with them. If you send cards to each of their homes, their families will be bringing that up. And I apologize if this is the first that you are hearing of that. And then some good news, our former intern, Carrie Holly Hurt, part of the step, kind of the almost final step, the hardest final step there is, to become a UU minister, met with the Ministerial Fellowshipping Committee yesterday. It went very well, and next step is ordination. Julianne has a joy and a concern. The joy is flexible people with music when unexpected events occur, and the concern that Bill, Lindy, Catherine, Barbara, and other friends are ill. May they recover easily and quickly. And one last joy, our administrator, Diane Stepikoff-Fay, today is her birthday, so be sure and send her an email. And we will skip that song and go on to the benediction, and after that, the rest of the normal service. I would like to give you permission for something. You get to draw the meaning that you wish to draw from this eclipse. And you can appreciate the science and also, as I say, be a little more woo-woo if there is something in that for you. I am, not that you need my permission, but I am formally giving you permission if what you are doing, the meaning that you are creating, is something that is life-giving and will make your life more whole. So may you enjoy this moment tomorrow. May the clouds somehow part, but whatever it is, may you know that you are whole and lovable and loved. Go in peace.
This is your invitation to our Faith Development Hour, which is special today. How is it special?
Because it's fed and informed.
It's fed and informed. What's fed and informed?
Fed and informed, if you did not see our whiteboard outside, is going to be extra special today. Ooh. Not only are you going to be fed, but you are going to be informed. We will have some extra special information on what's happening the next 3 months, but we also have an interest fair on how you guys can get involved and learn about all the things that happen around the church.
So we do this we do this quarterly, where we let you know what all our programming is going to be for the next 3 months. And one of the greatest ways to get involved, to build the beloved community, to be part of this congregation, is to sink your roots deep so that your wings will allow you to fly. So we invite you to find what touches your heart, what interests you, and take the opportunity to engage in that activity, whether it be a team, a committee, a class, volunteering in some way. It is just an awesome thing. And of course, the first part was, what was the first part of that?
Getting fed.
Fed? How is that going to work?
It's a potluck. So you guys will go through the line one time so that everybody can get fed. And you'll sit down at the tables.
And you'll see on the tables where usually we have tabletop discussion. Today the questions are about fed and informed. And you will have leaders at your table to help facilitate a conversation, and where we're going to talk about what is your passion? What have you done in the church that you love, and what would you like to do? Also, if you have kids in the nursery, I'm going to ask that you go right after the service is over and get your kids, bring them so they can eat with you. This also gives our staff an opportunity to have lunch with us. And then when we start the actual talking part of Fed and Informed today, The kids will go to the nursery with Harmony, Mikey, and Ellen, and they're going to be outside playing while we look at the tables and the expos. Now, if you want to stay and you're a kid, that's cool, but you also have the opportunity to go outside. Teens are in the library with Liz and Rosella, and they're doing hot topics after lunch.
And Fed and Informed is going to be short talking today, as we're going to be outside really getting to know each other and getting to know all the things that we can do today.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. And now would you please join Ren and me in extinguishing our chalice with these words by Unitarian Universalist Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Let us leave this service with renewal in our spirit and a song in our heart. Please rise for hymn number 1064, Blue Boat Home. It has been a gift to be together today. Please take the next 5 minutes talking with someone you don't know. Members, be sure to introduce yourselves to any first-time visitors we have. They're the ones with the handwritten tags. And show them where the visitors' table and coffee are, and food. And may we all know the blessings of friendship.
Here comes the sun, do-do-do-do. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. And little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. And here comes the sun, do-do-do-do. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to their faces. And little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. And here comes the sun, do-do-do-do. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. Sun, 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 here it comes. 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 Little darling, the smiles returning to their faces. And little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, do-do-do-do. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. It's alright.